taking a look at FIFA World Cup 2026 semifinals from a mathematical and economic perspective. So wealth and population are the biggest factors in determining the potential a country has to be good at anything. It doesn't define how good it is, but it defines the potential, and the more potential a country has, the easier it is for them to be good at something. So unfortunately, in the US and a few other countries, the school systems are often tied to youth and development sports. It shouldn't be like this, but that's the way it is. But anyway, back in the early 1900s, they figured out that the large schools were usually outperforming the smaller schools. So they started classifying schools into different divisions based on their student enrollment, so that schools of similar size would be playing each other in sports. This is sort of a basic, obvious thing that needed to have happen, and it should have also happened in international sports. However, international sports is still living in the Stone Age. But what we're going to do today is we're going to look at the semifinal games and see and pretend that these countries were the same size. So we're looking at their efficiency and seeing if the rightful teams went through. So this is going to be nice and easy because there's two games. So we have France and Spain. Spain is obviously more efficient, so I'm not sure. I think France is quite considerably more economically powerful than Spain. So France has an economic advantage, but Spain still won. It's not a huge difference like you see with some countries, but it is a factor. So, but anyway, Spain is so efficient that they're still able to beat France and consistently be better than France, even with less wealth and population. So Spain is definitely the rightful team to go through here. And it's a very similar thing with England and Argentina. However, England has even a bigger advantage than Argentina does in economics, and Argentina is still usually, again, more efficient than England in soccer. Of course, England does have other sports that they're very efficient at as well, but when it comes to soccer, Argentina is usually more efficient, and they're definitely more efficient this year, and they rightfully went through. So this is a rare case where two countries that have less wealth and population than their opponents are able to beat them, because usually it's the opposite. But of course, it really gets serious when you have huge differences of wealth and population. It becomes much more of a factor. For example, let's look at England and France. France this year is actually quite efficient. So England is efficient as well, but not to the degree France is. And there's plenty of teams in this World Cup that deserve to be in the semifinal more than England, for sure. And probably France too, but that's more of a close one. And maybe even Argentina and Spain, but that's even more debatable. So we'll just stick with England and France now because we know that for sure. For example, Norway this year, which I'm not saying this is always the case, but definitely this year Norway is more efficient than like England, and they might even be more efficient than France too this year. So they deserve the place, but they just have they don't have the brute force that France and England has because they're much smaller. And the further you go back, the more countries you're going to find like this, that if all the countries were the same size in wealth and population, a lot of these countries are more efficient in soccer. In other words, they have more true skill. And if you keep on going back to the group stages, you're going to find more and more. And if you go to qualification, you're going to find more, especially in Europe, in the case of soccer. But there's plenty of teams in Europe that didn't qualify for the World Cup that are just as efficient as England, but they just don't have the brute force that England has. But anyway, we can conclude that the rightful teams went through, at least in the semifinals.